Welcome, everybody. It is Crypto Moose, also known as Mitchell Bouchard. We are here with Stephen, CEO of VYFi. So, Stephen, do you want to introduce yourself and talk about what you guys have been working on?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on, Mitchell. So my name's Stephen. I'm the CEO of VYFinance. We are a DEX and I would say DeFi ecosystem on Cardano. We launched our DEX a month ago now, so fairly recently, and we're very excited with how it's been going. I mean, I can't believe the progress so far. So we are now the second highest locked TVL of any DEX on Cardano, and you can see that on DeFi Llama. And if you include staking, we're actually the fourth highest TVL of any platform on Cardano now. Fifth if you don't include staking. So we're still top five without staking included. The response from the community has been incredible, and I'm here to come and have a chat about what we've got coming up, what's been happening, and show off a little bit of the system that we've built.
Yeah, definitely. So I know I'm familiar with MinSwap. I remember the early talks with, I think it was Sunday Swap. What made you get into this space? Did you know you're always going to do this? How'd you get started?
So my background is in finance, and I was specifically a hedge fund trader, and I was working in bonds. Bonds are, I don't know if you've ever heard of interest rate swaps. Or at
2008?
least, yeah, 2008. Yeah, beautiful. Great start. So 2008 was doing similar to interest rate swaps, but rather than doing it with interest rates, they were doing it with mortgages, right? So that was the fixed versus variable mortgage payouts, mortgage returns, sorry. So they essentially took interest rate swaps and put it on top of the housing market. I wasn't doing any of that. I was just doing it for international debt. So I was essentially swapping interest rate from Germany or Euro to Britain, or swapping fixed interest, variable interest between America and Australia, right? What's really interesting about this entire structure of swapping interest rates is that when you're swapping interest rates, what I'm essentially doing is I'm swapping my Australian dollar for your Canadian dollar. And then I'm receiving a return in Canadian dollar, but my underlying, so I've changed my risk. Now my risk is being held in Canadian dollar, right? As the value of the Australian versus the US dollar changes, the value between the two currencies that I hold changes. So the return on my interest adjusts based on the value of the underlying asset, right? Or the relative value, I should say, of the underlying assets. Sorry if I'm going really deep, really quick. I apologize.
That's okay.
What I realized really quickly was that this system is identical to liquidity pools. And I don't mean just a little bit identical to liquidity pools. I mean, like, it's the same thing. I have two underlying assets. Those two underlying assets are two currencies that are being traded between each other that hold a relative value. And in return, I'm being given an interest. Right?
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, I had this realization when DeFi began in sort of 2018. I was pretty early on into DeFi, 2018, 2019, that these instruments were actually the exact same instruments that I'd spent my career training to use, right? So when I had that realization, I started really sort of hammering down heavy on DeFi. And that's when DeFi summer sort of started in 2019, 2020, into 2020. And I was able to take advantage of DeFi summer. And I started up my own little fund where I was essentially managing money for friends and family. It was a private fund, right? Where I've been managing money for friends and family in DeFi. We did very well. But from taking a lot of experience in managing money in DeFi, I started looking at problems as I saw them within the DeFi ecosystem, from the perspective of product design, token design, tokenomics. There were a lot of flaws as I saw them within the way that DEXs were built. So I essentially came up with my own unique design to a DEX. And then I put a team together, and definitely wasn't all me. It was the team that did it. And we built my design, and we think that my design solves a lot of the problems in DEXs.
Why Cardano? Is Cardano a blockchain that you think is just going to thrive in the future? Like, how did you come to that decision? Why ADA?
There was a look in the first instance, it was very much a business choice, right? And this is something I've always been open about. If we launch a platform on Ethereum, we're lost in the crowd. There's a lot of platforms on Ethereum, right? Whereas in Cardano, particularly when we started, if you go look at the old ecosystem maps, I mean, we were the fourth ever Cardano native token minted. We were minted on March 17th. I can actually look. I've got the V1 and that little bit of V1 that we just looked at before. I can look, but it was back in 2021, no, 2020, sorry, that we were minted. 20. I'm going to actually go have a look. Now I'm interested. It only take me 2 seconds. But we were the fourth ever Cardano native token minted. I do recall that. And furthermore, we've just been in this ecosystem forever. So when you look at the early ecosystem maps, you know, there were back in the old days where there were only 7 or 8 projects in the ecosystem maps, and we were one of those projects. So it's allowed us to really differentiate ourselves, because that differentiation is in part because there wasn't many other people doing what we were doing. Now, from there, you know, I am a maths nerd. So my background is, it's the 23rd of March, 2021. That's it. Now, my background is physics, right? So that's what I studied at university. And I really like the mathematical congruency. That's a better word I can use. I like the mathematical completeness of Cardano's design, right? So being a maths nerd always attracts you to Cardano. So I was interested in Cardano long before we started building our project. I've been trading Cardano since 2017. So in terms of that, there was always a natural interest myself in Cardano. And then I think the last one, and most importantly, was the community, right? Particularly when we started building, everyone instantly supported us, you know? And when you start getting a lot of support from the community, that bolsters you and makes you want to do more. Mm-hmm. So once we started getting a lot of that support from the Cardano community, we felt even more emboldened and we felt even more confident to continue with what we were doing.
I like that. And right now, in my opinion, I don't think there are a lot of DEX options for Cardano. Like, I know we talked about it before. I've used MinSwap for the most part. And then now I noticed VYFi and I started using it. And I like it. I like the UI. It seems as if that's really important to you guys, having a simple user interface. And also bringing a lot of coins so that people can get into different projects. So is that something that's important to you guys? Getting the opportunity for people to get their hands on it?
Yeah, and that's one of the advantages of launching later. It's also one of the advantages of having a very well-structured farming design. So our emission structure has been built for 21 years. It's one of the most controlled emission structure in crypto. And we've really, I've really built this emission structure to be controlled, I guess is the word, right? And being able to come in to crypto later, come into the DEX game later in Cardano means that we can actually sit back and have a look at the field and work out our farms retrospectively, rather than needing to. Being first in line means that you have to work out your farms proactively, right? That means you can't say, this is the field of the popularity and now I'm going to base my farms accordingly. You have to say, what's happening and what farms am I going to have to launch next week to keep up, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Now, that isn't so it's always difficult coming in later, but that's an advantage that we were able to take from launching later. So we were able to increase the field of farms and we were able to increase the offerings as a result of having that time advantage. So the one thing that we're able to take an advantage of being late. We'll take it.
Well, it makes sense. It makes sense. Like, from my perspective too, is I'm not a coder. I'm into computers. I'm into the design. I'm a creative guy. but I don't know anything about coding. I don't know how to make my own crypto. So to me, I tend to go with the average person or somebody that doesn't know a lot about crypto. And I'll look for something that's simple to use, that makes sense, because even to understand the differences between staking and farming, I know you went over it earlier, that's difficult for people. How are you going to make it even easier for people in the future to get into DeFi, to get into VYFi?
Let's share my screen. This is my little bit of V1 VYFi that I found earlier. So yeah, we minted on March 2021. So here we go. Here is our DEX, right? Now, exactly as you said, UI is something that's really important to us. And something that we noticed with the other DEXs on Cardano was that there was never really a single place that allowed you to manage everything that you had, right? So we've created this DEX button rather than it being a swap button, because in this DEX button, you're able to trade between tokens, you're able to add and remove liquidity and look at your portfolio. So everything is just done from this one single tab, right? Similarly, we've got our home tab, which is our DEX itself, which has got all of our pairs. And then we've got our bar, which we'll discuss a little bit later. That's a new system that we've introduced into Cardano. Now, our DEX, right, is special in that we have non-custodial LP farming. We call it stakeless LP farming. So that means that as soon as you create an LP token, you instantly start receiving your APR right here. You don't actually have to go stake that LP into any farms. So this is already simplifying the process for a new user, right? A new user is able to supply liquidity and instantly they're farming. So the non-custodial farming means that users just have to hold the liquidity pool tokens to be able to begin farming, right? Mm-hmm. Now, this also means that liquidity pool tokens become available in people's wallets to be able to use for other purposes. And that's what we're most excited for. So the first thing that we've designed is layer 2 liquidity pools. We're calling them L2LPs. This is where you can take your liquidity pool token. So in the case of ADA VYFi, if you've supplied liquidity to this liquidity pool here, you can match that liquidity pool token with Cardano, right? And now, as a result of that, you've actually added a liquidity pool that allows users to buy and sell liquidity pool tokens directly from the front end. This is a complex tool to use. This is a more an advanced tool to use for a DeFi user if you want to engage with layer 2 liquidity farming, right? But what this does for new users, and this is what's so amazing about our system. If I get Cardano, and here I get the layer 2 LP. So here I've got our layer 2 LPs. You read it by reading the last line. This is the AADA layer 2 LP. This is the WMT LP. This is the XVYFi LP. This is the VYFi LP, right? They're all with Cardano, of course. Now let's buy 20 Cardano worth of layer 2 LP. So once we buy 20 Cardano worth of layer 2 LP, the transaction's been submitted, and we can see that there. Transaction submitted. Now that the transaction's been submitted, let me show you something else that's really cool about VYFi. In VYFi, every pool has its own validator, which means that because every pool has its own validator, once a pool has gone into the operator, we can already begin sending in transactions to other pools. So let's do a zap operation where I'm going to zap in, it doesn't really matter, let's do AADA, why not, right? Now, all we have to do is we need to wait for this transaction to reach the operator. So here's transaction history, right? Now, once this transaction reaches the operator, it's going to go to on order. If I do this now, hopefully, that will go through to the operator in time. So if I sign this now, oh, it's neck pumping right now. There we go, boom, Cardano VYFi, transaction submitted. So even though we've got a recent transaction that hasn't gone through yet, we're already able to add another transaction to that list. We were just able to stack 3 transactions on top of each other, right? And all 3 transactions went through simultaneously. In theory, you can just keep doing it as long as you do it with a different pool every time, right? So you could do a trade with WMT, a trade with AADA, a trade with Indy, a trade with Min, and you could stack them on top of each other, and then they'll all get processed.
Why would somebody want to do this? Who would you say that this is the best for?
Anyone who is trading in a decent volume, right? So one of the biggest problems we have with the DEXs at the moment on Cardano is that while you're waiting for a trade to complete, you have to wait for that trade to complete before you can perform your next trade.
Yeah, that is true.
Right?
And
that
sometimes
really,
you have to wait a little while.
And sometimes you have to wait a little while, right? Now, that still is the case on the same liquidity pool. So if I do R to VYFi, right? So if I were to trade, let's say 5 VYFi back for Cardano, I'm not going to do it, but let's say we were, right? Before I can trade R to VYFi again, I have to wait for this transaction to complete, right? But I can go to, for example, R to Pavia, and I can just straight away put this in and I can get R to Pavia, right? And then I can go to R to CBLP or R to YAG, and now I can trade this for R to YAG, right? Once the other transaction's been submitted. So I can trade on multiple different pools simultaneously, right? That's a big step forwards in scalability.
It really makes sense, especially if you want to get out of a position, perhaps. Say a coin's pumping and you're like, I want to get out. I got to do something here. I could see that being pretty beneficial because
sometimes you want to do more than one trade at once. Exactly, right?
Yeah, exactly. That makes it. I like that. I like that.
Now, the other beauty is like we just did some zaps, right? So zaps means we just put artists straight into the liquidity pool. Now, have you noticed how we haven't actually done anything? But if I go to home and I let this load up, you can already see my estimated daily rewards.
I like that aspect. I noticed that several weeks ago before you guys even fully launched like all this too, right? Like I remember that you could see, I think it was for the first time when you guys had that ADA meld pool. You could see obviously the numbers were higher, but that's because there wasn't as much liquidity. But I like that. How did you guys pull that off?
Well, the beauty is that like it kind of required us to rethink about a DEX's structure, right? Cardano is built with the capacity to do staking. You know, that's the Cardano blockchain is built that way. So we were essentially able to take the power of the Cardano blockchain and implement it in such a way that it bolstered the power of our DEX, right? The way the DEXs are constructed, people are so classically used to thinking that the DEX, you get the LP token. The LP token is essentially a throwaway. You just take this LP token, you lock it into a farm, you forget that you ever had the LP while it's in the farm, and then you just earn the rewards, right? We wanted to completely and utterly turn that around on its head. And we wanted to say, no, the LP token isn't just a throwaway token, right? The LP token is 50% your underlying token and 50% Cardano. If anything, it's a safer version of the underlying token that you're trying to represent, right? Like if I had VYFi, now I have 50% ADA and 50% VYFi. That's a hedged position rather than just being an open position. So if anything, my LP token is a safer version of my actual underlying token, right? And as a result of that, this token shouldn't just be a throwaway. This token should have utility, right? Now, how do you give that token utility? Well, you ensure that users are able to still access that token, right? How do you ensure users are still able to access that token? Well, you do it by making sure that they're still able to access farms whether or not that token is in their wallet. Sorry, not whether or not that token is staked to a farm is the correct words there, right? So the logical conclusion there was if we want to give LP tokens utility, we have to create a system that allows users to earn their farms without staking their LP to a farm. You know, that's how you do it. So that's what we did.
Well, can you show everybody the price of your token right now? Because it did surprise me. And that is true in the fact that when I think about an LP token or a platform, a DeFi platform, a DEX token, I'm like, I kind of just need it because, you know, you get the APR, but then a lot of people think in their heads, I'm just going to swap it for something else. Whereas in this case, you would want to hold it. It's a great asset to have, right?
Exactly. And we're planning on implementing more and more utility for it. So an example would be using it as collateral in lending, right? Because lenders are able to accept an LP token as collateral, and it's got less risk than putting in collateral as just a CNT. So let's say you were to add VYFI as collateral by itself or add the VYFI LP. Well, the VYFI LP has got half the price risk of VYFI outright, right? As a result of that, lenders are able to offer lower collateral margins to be able to access their lending because you're able to offer a token with less risk. So all of a sudden, you've created a system where lenders are able to offer a lower interest rate on collateralized loans, and users are able to farm their LP tokens while simultaneously using those LP tokens to be able to access higher levels of lending, right? Now you've created an integrated system where by putting your liquidity into a DEX, that liquidity is still available to you to do other things with.
And when you hold the assets too, especially if you use a NAMI, like you can have a cold storage option too, right?
Absolutely.
So you could own your own digital assets and to be really banking by yourself, which I always like that aspect about crypto, right?
Absolutely. Right. And you could put this into your ledger, connect your ledger to an Eternal whenever you want to harvest. And then you just come in and harvest, and you can keep that VYFI in the ledger. Right.
That's cool. That's really cool.
Now accidentally clicked. The other big, really cool thing about this as well is that let's say you've got a little bit of tokens in the art of VYFI LP, right? So we just did this. So let's do it back. We've got some art of VYFI LP and we've got some VYFI AADA LP, right? Because we bought both of those LPs.
Yep.
Let's take this VYFI LP, right? What we just bought, and let's sell it back. So of course we're losing a little bit because there's the little bit of fees. So we put in 20 and we're getting 19.88. So now we'll sell back the LP. So that means that if you're a user and you have this LP token and you decide, oh, I want to exit my LP position, right? You don't actually have to exit by removing liquidity and then selling down one of the tokens, right? That's no longer a requirement to exit your LP position. You can just take your LP token and sell your LP token back to the market, and there you go, you get paid out your Cardano.
Yeah, and I know from experience that, not to bash on MinSwap, but it takes time. I always get comments, right? You know, it's like it takes multiple steps. You have to wait for the order, and then sometimes you have to wait quite a while, right? That is
Are you ready for this? Are you ready for this? I'm going to exit the AADA liquidity as well by just doing that, pressing confirm. And because we're able to stack our orders.
Yeah, you're right.
To the point that you were saying, not only am I exiting liquidity, but I'm simultaneously exiting liquidity from two separate liquidity pools that are coming to me straight back as Cardano. One of them's already taking place. I'm going to get back 20 Cardano from that. That's in Lovelace. And then this one's going to come back. I'm going to get 20 Cardano. And I have simultaneously exited two LP positions with two transactions. And I just had to wait. And I was able to stack them simultaneously. Do you see what a step forward this is for Cardano? And I would even say, like, you know, we're not as fast as doing transactions as other chains, of course. But the way in which this technology is implemented is brand new in all of crypto. You know, layer 2 liquidity mining has never existed before. The capacity to sell LP tokens to the market and have a sustainable ecosystem, a sustainable economic, whereby users are incentivized to actually add their LP tokens to a liquidity pool so that new users can purchase that liquidity straight from the market, and they're able to instantly begin farming. And look at that, the trades have already taken place. My estimated daily rewards, I've already back to zero because I've lost my LP tokens. So again, from scratch, you're a new user that comes to the DEX and you're like, oh, I think I want to try farming for the first time. I've seen a WMT. I've seen this WMT project, right, that I really like. And I want to maybe do a little bit of farming with WMT. would come here, they would go to the liquidity pool, layer 2 for WMT. I'm going to put in 15 Cardano and buy 15 Cardano of the layer 2 liquidity pool for WMT. Right? I'm just going to confirm it again. One moment. VYFi, confirm, done. And now because I'm a new user and I'm getting a little bit excited, I'm also going to go, you know what? I also want XVYFi. I heard about this XVYFi thing. Let's give it a shot. I'm only going to do 5 Cardano because I just want to see what this thing is. So they're going to press the confirm button. And then all of a sudden, they don't have to wait for this last transaction to finish. You just go, oh, look at that, right? Boom, transaction submitted. Now the new user is getting liquidity for both the XVYFi pool and the WMT pool. Now, our farming rewards work on an epoch cycle. So it's much like Cardano, but our epoch is 24 hours.
Yeah, I noticed that. So instead of 5 days, like the staking.
Instead of 5 days like staking, it's a 24-hour cycle. So you have an
how do you do that? How'd you guys pull that off?
We pulled that off by being creative, by being a little bit smart. Like the levers already exist in the system, right? So you just need to pull on the levers. It's just adjusting levers.
But I like that though, because a lot of times when, like for me, for example, when I think about yield farming, I'm like, I kind of got to lock it in for a little bit to make it worth it. Because, you know, you still have the fluctuating of coin prices, whatever. And with something like this, it's nice to know that, you know, every day you're getting rewarded and it's very easy to stack them and get out because speed's everything, right? If you're going to make it fast and to be able to own these digital assets on these DeFi platforms, even though you have your own, you know, recovery seed phrase and you own your assets, you got to be able to get in and out quick. So I like the rewards, how it's every epoch, every day in that sense. It's really cool. I like that.
And on top of that, our rewards, well, we don't have any available, right? Estimated daily. Yeah. We've only got the WMT token. So you can already see that, you know, the estimated daily rewards have already rocked up from that purchase that we made of the LP. When I go to estimated daily rewards, I have this, but when the next LP rocks up, which it already has, I just need to refresh my screen. It hath arrived. With our system, you're automatically harvesting all of your farms at once.
Okay,
you're never, ever going to be asked to harvest a farm separately. You can't even harvest a farm separately. The harvest button will automatically farm every one you got going simultaneously. So you could provide liquidity to 30 pools at once. And when you go and harvest, you only have to press one transaction to harvest all 30 pools.
I like that. And it should be that way because the fees get egregious after time. And, you know, it's like these guys are just acting like banks now, because that's the one thing where I'm like, okay, you have these great DeFi protocols, but then, you know, how do you get away from these fees, right?
Yep, exactly. Right. And the way you do it is by essentially bundling them together so you're able to charge it all in one transaction. Right. So the fee is still approximately the same, but instead of having to do it 30 times, you do it once.
I like that.
Right. Now, what this also means, right, because we purchased the liquidity pool tokens, of course, if you go to your liquidity, you can see right here that the liquidity pool tokens are right here under your liquidity. So do you know how we just bought the VYFi, XVYFi, the ADA WMT and the ADA VYFi liquidity pool?
Yeah.
Look at this. If I remove this now, confirm, I'm going to remove the WMT ADA that I just bought. So what I've just done is I have essentially bought a liquidity pool token off of the market that automatically begins farming for me. And now I'm removing the liquidity pool from that liquidity pool token, and I'm going to be receiving Cardano and WMT. So in other words, I have essentially taken the entire process, or we have taken the entire process that you normally have to do forwards, which is get both tokens, put both tokens into liquidity, take that LP token, move it into farm, right? We've taken that entire process that exists and turned it into simply trade for one LP, done.
And I like that because even with zapping, you have to have both assets, right? And then even in your head, you kind of start off with, what do I have less of? Kind of takes a little bit of that out, right? Because that is annoying. And that's something where a lot of people, because that's what this channel is all about, Crypto Moose. It's like, how do you get started in crypto? It's so complex. I do like that. And for those of you that don't know, when you're providing liquidity, you pair two assets. I'm sure you could talk about that even better. How would you tell how would you tell a beginner what this is, what we're doing here?
Yeah. To beginners, I always say this is super simple. It's just a currency exchange. You know, a bank needs to swap between currencies, and explaining impermanent risk is also fairly easy, right? I'll go through it really quickly. When a bank is running a currency exchange, they have to have a large amount of both tokens, right? I need to have a lot of Cardano, let's say I'm trading between Australian and Canadian, right? Our examples. As a bank, I need to have a lot of Australian dollar and a lot of Canadian dollar. When I swap Australian for Canadian, the bank is taking the Australian dollar that I give them and adding it to the Australian dollar pile. And then they're taking out from the Canadian dollar pile and giving me the Canadian dollar, right? So what's just happened? My Australian dollar pile's gotten bigger and my Canadian dollar pile's gotten smaller. That's impermanent risk. Banks have to deal with the exact same thing when they do currency swap. You are essentially a shopkeeper now, and you are letting people buy both of those currencies off you, right? If I was selling Pokemon and I had Pikachu and Charizard, and Pikachu was really popular, and they were allowed to swap between Pikachu and Charizard whenever they wanted, what's going to happen if Pikachu becomes really popular? My shop's going to be full of Charizards, right? Because no one wants the Charizards, everyone's swapping them for the Pikachus, right? But on the other hand, if all of a sudden Charizard becomes really popular, everyone's going to come in and swap their Pikachus back to Charizard, and now I've got heaps of Pikachus and barely any Charizards.
Yeah.
Right? That's all impermanent loss is. It's just you are the shopkeeper for these currencies. Right? So as simply as I can put it, we are allowing you to be the shopkeeper for the blockchain, to let people buy and sell currencies off you, rather than buying and selling currencies off the bank.
And that is good. That's what the blockchain's been designed for. That's a good step.
We've got SNEC.
You got SNEC. Everybody wants
Absolutely.
SNEC.
You should be providing liquidity in SNEC. We've got 160%.
I know.
APY.
I should be long on SNEC, right? What am I doing? What's the moose doing?
So our SNEC, yeah, we've got 160% APY. And not only that, but we just announced a dual farm with SNEC. So we're also going to be paying out SNEC from the 17th for providing SNEC.
Nice, nice.
So definitely give that some thought. Of course, not financial advice. Everybody, don't because I say it's a good APY doesn't mean dive in. And the last one that I want to show you is our bar. So we'll go through our bar in a moment. We'll go through our bar. So our bar is simply, let's just have a look. Yeah, remove liquidity work. Perfect.
I like that.
So I just want to make sure now it's loaded. So now my WMT, yeah, there it is. There it is. So there's my WMT. So what we did is we bought the LP token from the market. We removed it from liquidity. And now you can see that the effective trade that I did was purchasing WMT and Cardano. Now I'm no longer getting the farm for that WMT, right? Because I got rid of the LP token, but now I do have the underlying assets. I've got my 18 WMT and I've got my 20 Cardano or whatever it was, right? Now our bar is our piece de la resistance that brings it all together. So this is what makes our system sustainable. When we are performing functions on our DEX, right, the DEX generates fees, as I'm sure you're all aware of, right? Rather than just pocketing these fees for ourselves, what we do is we actually use these, the fees based on the volume to rebuy VYFi from the market and deliver it to our bar. So the way that this works is I deposit VYFi. So if I put in 50 VYFi at the moment, it's going to mint me 48.21 X VYFi. right? I get given this XVIFI to hold. I just keep it in my wallet, right? And then every time the bar serves, so one of these operations take place, right? It adds more VYFI into the bar. Here's the total VYFI in the bar, but it doesn't mint any XVIFI. So let's do this with very small numbers to keep it simple as there's 100 VYFI in the bar and 100 XVIFI in the bar. The value of XVIFI and VYFI at that point is 1-to-1. Someone comes in and serves 50 VYFI. Now there's 100 XVIFI and 150 VYFI in the bar. So 1 XVIFI is now worth 1.5. And that's exactly what happens. Every time you serve, the bar is served, you trade back XVIFI for slightly more VYFI. See, right now it trades back for 1.037030. Right? Let's have a little bit of fun here. I'm going to serve the bar. I don't have much VYFI in here. I've got 80. Let's see if 80 is enough to move this from 1.037030 to 1.037031. Right? Mm-hmm. And every time the bar is served, the value of XVIFI with respect to VYFI goes up. Right? And as a result of that, we've essentially got a system where we're distributing users' activity on our DEX back to our token. That way, providing a price support for our token and ensuring that we can provide sustainable farm for liquidity providers into the future. Right? It's not a perfect risk. It's not a perfect risk measure. I'm not going to say that, you know, we've got perfect price protection. That's no one can ever say that in anything, right? So again, not financial advice. I'm not saying there isn't risk involved.
Yeah.
XVIFI is priced in VYFI, which means XVIFI still holds VYFI price risk, right? Be aware of that. Then you can start doing combination strategies on our DEX. And this is where our DEX becomes really fun, right? I can add VYFI to my bar to get XVIFI. When I add VYFI to my bar to get XVIFI, I can then add liquidity to the ADA XVIFI pool, which gives me this APY. I can then take that ADA XVIFI and I can supply that to the ADA XVIFI L2LP, right? Which the APR is lower here because it's twice the value. You've had to match all the value with this, with all the value in as well again in ADA, right? Mm-hmm. But it's also half your impermanent risk because your portfolio is now 25% VYFI or XVIFI and 75% Cardano. So your impermanent risk halves, right? You've just been able to do a 3-layer trade. You're earning VYFI from the bar, you're earning VYFI from the L1LP, and you're earning VYFI from the L2LP.
So would that be providing liquidity to the liquidity?
Yes, that's exactly it. It's inception liquidity.
I've thought about that. It's like an inception of providing liquidity.
That's exactly it. It's an inception.
How safe is that? How safe is that?
It's in terms of price risk, it actually reduces your price risk from a portfolio perspective, right?
Okay.
So as I just described, if I hold an LP token, right, the price risk for an LP token is half the price risk of holding a token outright. People don't understand impermanent risk very well in general, right? But that's functionally what impermanence risk does. If VYFI reduces by 50% in value, my LP token reduces by 25% in value, right? Now, if I have a layer 2 LP, the same thing takes place. If VYFI reduces by 50% in value, the liquidity pool token reduces by 25% in value, and the layer 2 LP reduces by 12.5% in value. Impermanent loss would be when the value of, let's say, VYFI goes down and you're earning more VYFI, right? Impermanent gain is when the value of VYFI is going up and your shop is selling your VYFI supply and being given more Cardano, which is the base currency of the blockchain.
Yeah.
Right? In that circumstance, you're actually earning more of the base currency So your pool is undergoing impermanent gain. Now, something that I really love about our community is that this has been happening recently, and people have been getting sad, going, I can't believe my impermanent loss. I'm losing all my VYFi. When in reality, you're not losing your VYFi, you're selling your VYFi whilst you're earning VYFi as a reward, and you're experiencing impermanent gain. Your portfolio value is growing. It's not shrinking, right? But people are so emotionally attached to their VYFi that they feel as if it's a loss, when from a portfolio perspective, it's a growth.
Well, the price is going up a lot too, the token, right? So
yeah, the price is going up. So
yeah,
you're gaining value in your portfolio. You're not losing value.
oh, for sure.
But because they're losing VYFi, they get sad and they're like, I don't like this impermanent loss.
Yeah, the
like,
price has gone up. The price has gone up a lot since what it like it's been out competing everything. It's beating Snack. It's beating everything. I like that. I wanted to get on something if we could throw this in. Because I've been following Copy Meld for the longest time. Is it true? Do you guys have some form of partnership with Dega? What is that? How is that? Is that true? Is that
so we've started working with Dega. We're essentially going to be, from what I can gather and from our discussions, their DeFi provider. So we're going to be assisting them with setting up all their DeFi ecosystem, right?
Wow.
Their main focus is gaming. Meld's focus is no longer on Cardano, so they are also going to be integrating with Meld to do stuff on other block, to do stuff on within the Meld side chain, right? But we're going to be helping them with integrating DeFi into layer 1 Cardano. Thank you. So let's stop sharing. As you can see, I think this is why we're making a bit of a splash in Cardano. Our technology that look, I would say our architecture, right? Our technology is the same, is pretty similar to everyone else. We've architected it differently. Our architecture is incredibly unique. It's incredibly powerful and allows for users to engage in DeFi, not only in Cardano in a new way, but allows users to engage in DeFi from across all crypto in a way that you can't engage in DeFi in any other blockchain. We are a uniquely Cardano built DEX with a unique Cardano implementation, which allows for more power than any DEX, I think, has before.
Well, you can see that. I like that. I like a lot of different things that you've implemented there. But even going further, how are you going to make it even easier for people to use the DEX? Because what you showed me is great compared to other DEXs. Like, I love this. This is something I'm going to be doing more videos talking about, showing in online courses. I'm really impressed with what you showed me today. But how do you make it even easier? Because that's the biggest problem in crypto is, how do I get involved? It's so complex to people. So how do you synergize the difficulty?
So our next step is to build essentially an auto harvester, right? So there's a lot of UI things that we can do to make it a bit easier, which we're going to be focusing on. But the auto harvester is where we allow users to just put Cardano into a vault, and then we manage all the liquidity mining for you.
I like that.
You don't even have to do anything. So you will just say, I want to do the DEX. Let's say I want to do the DEX strategy. So the DEX strategy liquidity mines MinSwap, Wing Riders, Muesli, so Milk, and VYFi. You just add your Cardano into that, and then we automatically take those, farm them across the 4 DEXs, and all you have to do is leave your Cardano in there.
So you would have like a VYFi index fund kind of thing, or what?
That's it. Exactly.
That would be cool.
Right? So
I like that.
But not only are we doing it, but our auto harvester, we're only about 3-4 months away from having it built. We've already done a lot of progress on it. And we're really excited to get that released. We're starting it with being native to our platform. So you add Cardano and it automatically goes into pools on our platform. And then we're going to be expanding that to include other DEXs in Cardano over the next, by the end of this year, we essentially want to have a liquidity aggregator for all L1 protocols on Cardano. Look, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm really excited to show off the product, right? And I'm really excited to show the technology that we've built. And I just want to thank you for letting me come on and show you guys what we've done.